My name is Sean Faircloth, and I'm a clean elections candidate for governor because our form of government has been stolen, and we, the people, must take our government back. Big money. Big money lobbyists, oil companies, the Koch brothers spend $34 lobbying compared to $1 by public interest groups. We must protect our democracy from these people, whether it is Russians hacking elections nationally or Republicans hacking elections in Lewiston as they did against Ben Chin. We need to stand up. We need to stand up for what's happening. So as governor, I will hire a cyber forensic investigative unit so we can find these criminals and work to expose them before the election, increasing the criminal penalties for tampering in our elections, which is exactly what has been happening. Now, the Koch brothers say everything's fine. Look at the stock market. But I'm executive director of a mental health agency with a soup kitchen and a food pantry. And I see Mainers unfamiliar with stock market portfolios and familiar with the opiate crisis. Young people leaving our state, our 20 to 34-year-old age bracket is down 20% from 2 decades ago. Donald Trump's answer? Coal mine jobs, as if it's 1918, not 2018. Get real. There are more Americans working at Arby's than all the coal miners in America today. Even Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft combined have fewer direct employees than McDonald's does in America. Maine people work hard. As child care workers making 11, 12 bucks an hour, people work hard at convenience stores, Walmart, mental health workers, grocery stores, secretaries, home health aides. 1 in 5 children living in poverty, despite the fact that many of their parents are working. These jobs, these helping jobs, have much dignity and worth. They have as much dignity as worth as any other job. But it seems like politicians aren't paying attention to their worth and dignity today. Now listen to what Martin Luther King wrote about the late 1800s. It was a simple thing to keep poor whites working for near starvation wages. If the poor white worker became dissatisfied with his lower wage job, the plantation or mill owner would merely threaten to fire him and hire former Negro slaves and pay him even less. The leaders of the populist movement began awakening the poor white masses and the poor former Negro slaves to the fact that they were being fleeced by the moneyed interests. This sound familiar? Yeah. Not only that, but they began uniting Negro and white masses into a voting bloc that threatened to drive the moneyed interests from commanding political posts of power. Now is the time for our populist voice to rise again, because Maine had Trump before Trump. Woo! America will look to Maine to see if progressivism is truly on the rise, and boy, do we need progress. As we saw in 2016, the smart strategy is the bold strategy. It is not enough for a candidate to say they disagree with Paul LePage, but rather, we must show through leadership that we agree with the values of Martin Luther King and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. That's our leadership, that's our vision, that's our values, and we're going to drive it home. Our people's governorship will be guided by the utmost respect for science and evidence. In fact, we have a scientist in the room who helped lead the People's March. Aisha, say, wave Aisha, and let's give her a round of applause. The Science March at the University of Maine. We should have a science march every year there because we need to show what respect we have for science. I know I'm going to lose votes for saying this, but people want an honest politician, so I'm going to go ahead. I state that I proudly have always liked Star Trek better than Star Wars, and Mr. Spock is my favorite character. Mr. Spock is my favorite character. See, because some people view science as cold, inhuman, but in fact, science leads to compassion. It comes down to when Mr. Spock says, "That is highly illogical, Captain." We are supposed to stop and listen and think again. Examples. Humans are a dimorphic species. Men tend to be bigger than women. But there is no scientific evidence that women are intellectually inferior. A great beauty of science is that thousands of years of tradition can be tossed aside in an instant if evidence doesn't support tradition. And that is as it should be. Gay people. Gay people. There is zero scientific evidence that I can be cured of being straight or that a gay person can be cured of being gay. Once that is established, we can offer a bit of small-town Maine values. Consenting adults, mind your own business. Take those small-town Maine values. Take those small-town Maine values, Mr. Mike Pence. Mind your own business. Hundreds of years of stigma apply to people who live with mental illness. Hundreds of years of moral condemnation applies to people who live with substance abuse disorders. But modern science makes clear that people who face these issues face biological challenges. And from that recognition comes not stigma, but compassion and caring. To ensure that science and reason prevail, I will create a cabinet-level Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Disorders, and the commissioner of that department will be a person with lived experience facing mental health or substance abuse challenges, and they will create an office of recovery advocacy with staff directed to innovative ways to enhance recovery through all government departments. I will appoint Dr. Noah Nesson to lead a panel formulating policy on the issues of substance abuse and opiates during our campaign and during my administration. Big Pharma will try to stop me from removing some high-dose opiates from the market, but I will fight them right back. Our People's Administration will follow science on climate change and pollution, supporting all forms of renewables and adamantly opposing drilling off Maine's coast. And I emphasize, it will be the express goal of this administration to put more money in the pockets of average Mainers. Our administration will increase Maine's minimum wage because the living wage in our state in 2018 is over $15 an hour. Therefore, our administration will increase the minimum wage dollar for dollar, year over year, until we've reached $15 an hour by 2023. Our administration will institute workplace retirement program that is voluntary but is 15 times more likely to institute savings and thus in turn save taxpayers millions in avoided public assistance for seniors who will live more comfortably in their retirement. When women move to a new job, they're sometimes asked not for their skills, but for their earlier wages, thus often locking in earlier wage discrimination. Studies show a prohibition on this unnecessary practice will put more money in women's pockets, and we're going to pass that law in this state. Our administration will take the Energy Smart program that I initiated as mayor and bring it statewide. Last year, Efficiency Maine participation increased less than 1% statewide, but it increased 50% in Bangor. Woo! Energy audit and air sealing participants could save their initial investment within the 1 year and then have net savings every year thereafter. Our administration will increase revenue sharing to municipalities, thus holding down property taxes. Our administration will support generic prescription drug bills spearheaded by progressive legislators like Senators Jackson and Bellows to lower the cost of prescription drugs, and we will happily fight Big Pharma to get it done. Our administration will move swiftly to end marijuana prohibition, using tax proceeds to lower government costs and educate young people about the dangers of alcohol, marijuana, and opiates. Our administration will invest $100 million in internet bonding and more bonding for roads and bridges, creating good-paying jobs for our citizens that we need and that they will have. Far from resisting economic development, our People's Administration will create a culture of innovation. How? Number one, I will dramatically expand the R&D tax credit that I initiated for business as a state senator, cutting taxes for innovators in this state. Number two, we will seek diversity of ideas. I started the Maine Multicultural Center in Bangor not so much so that we could help immigrants, but so that immigrants can help us. In addition to addressing our workforce shortage. Immigrants start businesses at a higher rate than non-immigrants. Studies show that new people with new ideas spark greater opportunity and create creativity and innovation in our culture. And that young people, in particular, including young white people, prefer to live and remain in a diverse community. Number 3, convene and vet creative ideas. As governor, I will create a Maine Leaders Scholarship Fund offered to 450 scholars each year, $5,000 to each. Imagine 450 scholars ranging from college to postgraduate students who win based both on a leadership record and leadership plans for the future of Maine tied to their academic specialty. What if just 10% of these leaders come up with ideas that benefit Maine? What an exciting and relatively inexpensive machine for creating new ideas. Next, the Innovative Neighborhoods competition, labeled by the Bangor Daily News as a blueprint for making our city better. In its inaugural year, we will expand that, and the governor's Innovative Maine competition will foster civic innovation statewide with a relatively small investment, achieving a major burst of civic innovation such that Maine will stand out nationally and attract and retain the creative and innovative minds that move a state forward and set Maine apart as an innovative culture. We stand in the Bangor Public Library. Many people deserve thanks for making the library addition. But the addition wouldn't be here without Tabitha and Stephen King. Stephen King had a pretty good run this year, the highest grossing horror movie ever made from his novel It. I run a mental health agency with a soup kitchen and a food pantry, steps away from where the lead female character in It, Beverly Marsh, grew up. A snippet about that neighborhood from the book. Quote, Sally and Greta both came from rich families with houses on West Broadway, while Bev came from one of those slummy apartment buildings on Main Street. Main Street and West Broadway were only 1.5 miles apart, but the real distance was like the distance between the Earth and Pluto. All you had to do was look at Beverly Marsh's cheap sweater, her too big skirt probably came from the Salvation Army thrift box, and her scuffed penny loafers to know just how far one place was from the other. Beverly, overcoming sexual abuse and other horrors, is a hero. Stephen King wrote, quote, "We make up horrors to help us cope with the real ones." Pennywise and his red balloon are known the world over. But the biggest horror in his novel is based on a real horror in the history of our city, when Charlie Howard, a gay man who never hurt anybody, was beaten, kicked, then tossed off the State Street Bridge, steps from where we stand, and let to drown in the Kentuskag Stream. Our entire state must never forget Charlie Howard. Pennywise, he's the placeholder for all the real world horror, the cruelty of which our species is capable. But in Stephen King's It, there's something bigger, stronger than the dark instinct that killed Charlie Howard, and that's Beverly Marsh, from the neighborhood where my mental health agency sits, where people have problems, like we all do, people with disabilities or substance abuse challenges, divorces, people labeled too fat, too frail, homeless. Beverly Marsh and her friends are called the Losers Club. And these people, the vulnerable people, people who have had their hearts broken a couple of times, taken some very hard knocks and got right back up. My dad died last April, and every day of my life, I think about a Sunday afternoon when I was little, and my dad lifted me up on his shoulders, and I saw amid a sea of people, arms outstretched, black people, brown people, white people, reaching out to Robert Kennedy. The hope, the strength, the commitment to justice between that diverse crowd and that caring, passionate leader is a commitment that my father kept to the day he died, and I pledge to you that I will keep that commitment to the day I die. RFK and MLK for years, based on verified FBI reports, knew that their lives were in danger. Yet with no Secret Service protection, they got up every morning and spoke before huge crowds for justice, day after day, year after year. They knew that someone with a high-powered rifle or some guy in a kitchen might shoot and kill them. And 2 days after I saw Robert Kennedy, that is exactly what happened to him. Since the end of the Civil War, our state and our nation has never faced a greater internal threat. It is an insidious danger of corrupt money and special interests and Russian conspirators seeking to permanently corrupt our government like never before. This campaign is not about me. It is about a promise I make to you today. If together we work for a government, in Lincoln's words, of the people, by the people, and for the people, if together we seek a new and vibrant optimism in our state, enlivening and energizing, you will never find a more determined and passionate servant than me. If together we do the hard grassroots work of this Clean Elections campaign, the petitions, the $5, the $100, the events, the rallies, the long nights, all the hard work, and we take the state back for the people, I will get up every day as your governor and keep my commitment to you, to my father, and to the cause of justice for our state and for our country. Working together, we want all the world to know what we in Maine can accomplish together for justice and for a more compassionate nation and a better world. Thank you very much.